Hello and welcome back. So in this video, we would continue with our Gnuplot from the previous video. So by the end of this video, we would know how to use Gnuplot interactively and more importantly, or most importantly, look at how to customize our plot. So from the previous video, we realized that we just generated some basic sine graphs or quadratic graphs without necessarily customizing our graph. So we would pay more attention there. So without wasting much time, let's get started. In order to customize our plots in Gnuplot, we use the command set, and then we give it a feature name we are interested in customizing, right? So you said set, maybe key, if you want to customize the legend or the key to the graph, or you set anything, x-axis, y-axis, or x-label, or whatever. So we would see that. So we use the set keyword or the set command, and then followed by the feature name we are interested in. So to look at the various configuration of the current Gnuplot state, you can use show all to view the settings. So let me increase if I type Gnuplots, we are inside Gnuplot, Control L to clear the screen, and then I type show all. This shows all the current configurations that I have on the system. I have to decrease for some of them to show well. So let me just quickly take you through some. It says that we have let me see. Okay, so the x0 axis is off, y0 axis is off, and then z0 axis is off, right? Key is on, key is right, justified, not reversed, and then not inverted. Sample length is this, and a whole lot of things. Let's look at another one here. The color. I'm just trying to show you some of the things that we can easily come back to view there are a lot of configurations here that we can actually do. The x-axis ticks are in, right? Major tick style and a lot of things here. So basically that's that. Title is, you see, the title has not been set. The X label hasn't been set. You see that it's empty here. The Y label too is empty here. So the line type and a whole lot of things. So let's quickly get out of here. So Control D to exit or quit Gnuplot and then continue. So basically that's how we used to see all the various configurations of our system. Okay, so now let's do some quick one. So to set the x-axis and the y-axis, we use x label, then the axis name that you want to give it, and then y label, the axis name you want to give it. And then to set the range, the domain range, you can just do set x range, then you give it the range of values you want, and then you set y range, you give it the range of values you want. So quickly, let me go back to Gnuplot, and then this time, let's see something. Control L to clear the screen. And then now, if I plot sine x, the basic one that we just plotted some time ago, if I plot sine x, we could see that by default, the x axis ranges from -10 to 10, and then the y -1 to 1, right? Okay. So this is it. And then when we see the x-axis doesn't have any label here, the y-axis doesn't have any label here. So, and then the legend, the graph name is, the key is sine x. Okay, so now let's try and see whether we can set some. We said that to set, we said set x label, and then the label name. So this time I want to call it x-axis. So x-axis. Then I hit enter, and then the y, so set y label, and then I just want to call it y-axis, but this is a really dumb name though, but this should work. Now, if you want to replot this same graph or any graph at all, you don't have to type the plot command again. All you have to do is use the replot command. Replot to replot the same or the previous graph that you plotted using the new configurations. Okay, so now let's see. Now, if you can see, I don't know if you can see, but then now we have an axis name here called x-axis and another axis name here called y-axis, right? So basically, that is how we set the axis name. So you can come back here and unset the axis name, right? So you can unset x label, and then now when you replot, you see that what the x label is gone, but the y label is still there. So that's how we set and unset. So let me reset it. But this time around, let me just call it x values or something. So let me just keep it as x-axis and then replot. So basically that's how we set. But then now let's try and look at the range, right? So I want to set my x range to be equal to maybe from -20 to 20 instead of -10 to 10. When you hit enter, you can replot to replot the same function, but then this time you see that it ranges from -20 to what? 20, right? And then now let's check the y. The y-axis, if you set the range or y range to, this is interactive, so we expect that whatever we do, when we give it a command, we should be able to y range. Okay, so when we hit enter and we replot, now we see that the y values have been what? Lifted up, but then we know that sign ranges between -1 and 1. So that's how come the graph is stuck in the middle. So we have our x-axis and our y-axis, and then we've reconfigured our what? Ranges. Okay. So basically that's how we do the configuration or the settings, right? Okay. So now let's continue. So we set the x range and the y range. So now let's look at how to configure the axis in the middle. Most of the graphs that we are used to, that we have the x and y axis set in the middle of the graph, right? But then here, if we pay attention, we can see that what? You can see that the x and y axis are right at the edge, which is not something we'd want. So let's quickly do that. Let's look at that. To do that, you have to use set x0 axis, as we saw earlier, and then you set the x-axis to axis, axis, and then set y0 axis, and then the same thing. So let's see. So now I type set x0 axis. So if you just want to see the impact of this command, you can do replots to check something right now. So here you can see that now there's a line here, right? So there's a dotted line in the middle of our graph. Do you see? But then we have to make sure that the x-ticks are there. So we set what? X-tick axis. And then when we replot now, we see that what? Now the numbers are now on the dotted lines, you see. So the x-ticks are now on the dotted line. You can see the numbers. So -20, 15, and all those ones. So the same thing, or similarly, if you want that of the y, you just have to do set y0 axis. Let me clear the screen. Control L. So you have, set y0 axis. And then if you replot, you don't have to be replotting. I just want to show you the effect. Here too we have the dotted lines, but then we want to bring the text, the demarcations, the numbers here. So you do set what y-axis to what axis. So now when we replot, we can see this lines here. So now we've been able to successfully bring our planes, right, the x and y axis, in the middle of our graphs, just like we are used to. So now when you pick your graph, you can now easily find the x-intercept, the y-intercept, the zeros of the curve to know the exact point at which your function gets to 0, and a whole lot of things, right? So basically, this is how we plot our graph, the Cartesian plane, into the middle of the curve. Okay. So continuing, we want to set the title, right, of the plot. So now we know we've been able to successfully plot the graph in the middle and then look at certain configurations. But then we would want to set a title for our graph. And to do that, you have to always ensure that you set the key, right? If key is not set, you can't set a title. So you have to make sure that you set a key. The key here also is referred to as the legend, right? So you make sure you set the key, and then after setting the key, then you can use the title command. Either you use title in full or you use T for title. And then after bringing the title command, then you can then put the title of the graph in quotes beside it, right? So an example would be plot sine x, then you put a title graph of sine x. So let's quickly look at that. So now if I do plot sine x, sine x, and then I say title graph of sine x. Bear in mind that the key has already been set, right? Sine x, sine of x, something like this. Then if now you can see from here that it changes to graph of sine x. The title has changed to graph of sine x, right? First it used to be sine x, but then now it is graph of sine x. So that is that. I can also do the same thing, but then change the title here to T, right? And then it should still work. Okay. It's the same graph of sine x here. So basically that is how you go about the title. So now what if I want to plot two different graphs on the same plane as we looked at in the previous video and set the title? It's the same thing, right? So I have graph of sine x and then comma, then I do the next function cos what x, and then the title would be graph of cos x, graph of cosine of x, right? So here now I expect that I see the two graphs overlaid, and then now the title is graph of sine x and then graph of cosine x, exactly as you see. Bear in mind that the axis is still in the middle because we didn't exit or we didn't reset the x0 axis and y0 axis, as well as the x ticks and the y ticks, right? So keep that in mind. Okay. So basically that's how we plot multiple functions and assigning them their titles. Okay, so now let's look at the range. So we saw how to configure the range by default for all graphs. We could also decide to configure the ranges on the go while plotting the function, right? By just saying plot, then we bring the x range, y range, and then the graph or the function or the data we are interested in plotting. So you can do plot x like that. So let's see. What if this time around I don't want to, if I do replot, I expect the two graphs to be plotted, right? But then here when we realize that, the x range is between negative 20 to 20. What if I just want negative 10 to 10? So all I have to do is say plot, and then I set the square bracket. The first one is for the x range, the second one is for the y range, right? So I said from negative 10 towards 10, It doesn't have to be equal, but then, well, for this particular graph, I just want negative 10 to 10. If you don't want to configure anything for y, you just leave the square bracket empty, and then you have sine what? X. Sine x, and then maybe you set the title, graph of sine x. Sine x. Then now, we expect that when we plot this, we should see it from negative 10 to 10, right? So basically that's that. With our x and y axis still in the middle, the title still set as graph of sine x, but now the axis has changed. So you can see it's the same thing to plot multiple functions, and then we have cos x. You can do this for any function at all. I just choose sine x and cos x. Okay. So okay, let me do tan x, right? And then graph of tangent of x. Tangent of x, right? So now, hopefully, I should see the two graphs like this. Okay. Bear in mind that because you choose a y value of negative 2 to 2, so we see it like this, right? If I choose to Control L to clear the screen, if I choose to maybe change the x-axis, configure the y-axis properly, all I have to do is just say maybe the y should come from negative 5 to 5. And let's see what happens. It's still the same, right? So basically this is it. You can choose to do anything at all you want to. But then this is how you do it. Y is negative 5 to 5, and then x is that, right? So basically this is how we configure our graph, right? Okay.